You're listening to AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Clutch with Keon Rose is the show. Nooga Radio is the station. NoogaRadio.com is our website. If you want to follow our social media, you can go to the website. You've got the Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube links down at the bottom of the page. And I recommend subscribing to the YouTube channel. You'd be able to get to see things like our interview just now with Coach Zach and Coach Clark of the Chattanooga Eagles. They're playing a big game tomorrow, Central High School at 7 p.m. I really like those guys. Being able to talk to both of them, they're cool guys. Some people get on the radio and they mean well, but it's not a great interview. I really enjoy having on both of those guys. And I'm highly recommending that you go out there and support them. Learned a lot of things about coaching in the GDFL, which is not a league that many people are familiar with, but hopefully will be more familiar with as it grows, because it's football in the summer. That's a dream. That's a dream that I hate that football has to go away and I have to sit down. And I love baseball. I do. Okay. Baseball is the first sport I actually liked growing up as a kid, but football's dynamic in a way that I think baseball is in spurts. Football is constantly dynamic, and that's why we love it so much. So make sure to support those guys. The Chattanooga Eagles, 7 p.m., Central High School. Be there or be some kind of a square. Now, speaking of squares, because, this is the world that we live in. If we're not talking about football, like last segment, we're talking about some kind of football scandal. And it's funny because the whole NCAA infraction stuff against Ole Miss was an interesting side story that turned into a full-blown scandal that everybody has to report. And while it's crazy and wild and I'm running around trying to get all of this news, it's nice. Okay, it's nice to have something to talk about. And so with that, it's interesting to me where Ole Miss and Hugh Freeze wound up, because they both wound up in the worst place imaginable, right? Hugh Freeze, and I'm a little mad about this, Hugh Freeze resigned about 5 minutes to the end of my show yesterday, so I didn't get to talk about any of this. But Hugh Freeze resigned after news that he called a Detroit-based escort service broke, right? The Oxford Eagle, the Oxford newspaper, had a wonderful headline this morning that read, "Escorted out," and then talked about Hugh Freeze and the fact that this was not a one-time thing, right? Like, he just kind of passed off the escort service call as a butt dial, which seems like a fairly unlikely butt dial. Am I wrong on that one? It seems fairly unlikely that if you butt dialed someone, the fact that you would happen to butt dial an escort service does seem somewhat fishy, but that's the way that it got explained away. And I can't tell who this is worse news for, whether it's worse news for Ole Miss or worse news for Hugh Freeze, right? On the one hand, Hugh Freeze was coaching a team, and now Hugh Freeze is no longer coaching a team in a position where he could potentially be blackballed enough to not end up coaching again, unless, he goes to the Nick Saban coaches recovery program, because that seems to be what Alabama is, where if you were a previously good coach who got blackballed for some particularly good reason, you could go coach at Alabama until you got your reputation back. See Steve Sarkisian and Lane Kiffin for any advice. But I don't know if this is worse for him or worse for Ole Miss, because he is a guy that spent the greater part of SEC media days going, well, why are we talking about the kids? We're out here doing this for the kids. And now here you are, and we find out you were doing this for the escorts. You were doing this for the prostitutes. We were wondering, right? The accusations initially against Hugh Freeze were that he was giving money to players. As it turns out, Hugh Freeze was giving money to prostitutes. Who knew? Right? Meanwhile, Ole Miss, who should have at least considered firing Hugh Freeze before, stood by their guy, spent the greater part of the last year trying to convince us that Hugh Freeze was a good guy before forcing him to resign for not really being a good guy. Like, that's the thing that we're at here, though, is that you put yourself in this position where you had to double down on, no, Hugh Freeze is a good guy. This is not his fault. This is the last coach's fault. Never mind that the NCAA is investigating 8 separate allegations involving Hugh Freeze. 8! Okay, 8, which tells me that Hugh Freeze doesn't necessarily have the greatest regard for a thing we like to call the rules. Yeah, not the biggest regard for that. And so here we are. Hugh Freeze, forced to resign. Forced to resign. I say that because he would have been fired had he not resigned. And I quote athletic director Ross Bjork when he said that had he not resigned, he would have been terminated without cause, quote, no settlement, no buyout, end quote. Because there's a morality clause in the contract. And to me, I have no idea why it is that you would even sign that then. Like, why sign a morality clause if you know you're not being moral? Right? Like, if it ever came out that you were calling an escort service, right? So Ross Bjork, the athletic director, who I imagine is quaking in his boots because his job is up next, because you're the first guy to double down on a head coach, right? You're the guy whose responsibility it is to fire the head coach if things go awry, whether he's bad at coaching football or whether he is simply bad for your locker room, bad for your school, bad for your school's image. It's the athletic director's responsibility to figure all of that stuff out, right? Like, when you look at a business, bigger companies especially, the kind of companies that are big enough, they've got a board of directors and all of that good stuff. What's the job of the board? The job of the board is to fire a CEO. That's like one of their 2 biggest jobs. The job of the board is to fire the CEO. If the CEO is bad at being a CEO, or the CEO has an image that is bad for the company, that's his job. Like, the athletic director is a one-man board, okay? It's his job to figure out whether or not he should keep a coach. If the coach is not winning football games, you might have to pass on the coach. And if the coach is somehow caught up in several infractions, several investigations, you might have to pass on the coach. Instead, Ross Bjork doubled down on a coach who not really regarding the rules. And they never bothered to look at his phone records before, which is how this stuff just came out. Like, they never really bothered to look. And then when they bothered to look, they found what they described as a pattern of discouraging behavior. Yeah, it's a pattern that's been happening this whole time. Right? And then, so for Ross Bjork to then have to describe what happened to Hugh Freeze, because a reporter asked Bjork, does what Hugh Freeze did to the trust of the university, does it qualify as betrayal? That was the question. Does it qualify as betrayal? And Bjork goes, well, everybody makes mistakes. Listen to me. Listen to me. If a guy calls escort services so often that you can consider it a pattern of behavior that you find to be discouraging, that is not a guy making a mistake, right? Like, people have moments of weakness, right? Like, I've talked to guys who have cheated in the past, have had infidelity in the past, in a moment of weakness. But if you are calling escort services like you've got a lot of their phone numbers in your phone, that's not a moment of weakness. That's you, right? All of your actions add up to be you. That's what makes a person a person. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM, talking about Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss. Who is in a worse spot? I would argue it's Ole Miss, because Ole Miss still has to fight the NCAA, and they still have to really kind of convince the NCAA that they think Hugh Freeze is a good guy, while having forced Hugh Freeze to resign for not being a good guy, for being the opposite of what you would describe a good guy to be, if he's going to violate a morality clause in his contract, right? So Hugh Freeze is not going to have one of those jobs that I would like to have. I'd like to have the golden parachute job. I'd like to have the job where you pay me to not coach or to not work. I'm fine with that. I'm lazy enough that that actually fits me and my personality well enough. If you go around paying me not to coach, I'm fine with that. I really am. Hugh Freeze does not have that luxury. Hugh Freeze is going to have the same job I have. Net. Right? So I don't know necessarily why they doubled down on Hugh Freeze in the way that they did, because a person with a pattern of behavior, that is who they are. Let me tell you something about life, because it's something that my dad always told me. When you make a decision, you have to be careful about that decision, because if you keep making a series of similar decisions, that is going to be the person you become. Okay? Everybody gets angry sometimes. But if you find that every time you get angry, you hit something, you're a hit. Like, that's what you are, right? You are a person that does not have the self-control to not hit stuff. And that's something you need to stop doing in order to make that not who you are. You cannot be in the heat of the moment and talk about, well, it only happened this time. That's not really who I am. It is, you are what you continually choose to do. I'm sorry. That's the truth. You are what you continually choose to do. If you lie all the time, you're a liar, right? You can lie once and be like, oh, you know what? I shouldn't have done that. You can walk that back. If you lie constantly, you're a liar. Right? If you constantly talk about other people's business behind their back, you're a gossip. You are the actions you choose to do over and over and over again. And Hugh Freeze is a rule breaker. It's the one action he has consistently done over and over and over again, because there's no way that I was buying that all of that stuff was the previous head coach's stuff with Houston Nutt. Houston probably was involved in a lot of shady things, okay? We all looked at Ole Miss, looked at the talent of Ole Miss and thought, they've always been lagging behind the SEC in talent. Boy, they got awful talented, awful fast. But this is what happens when a school is blinded by the mask of winning, right? Hugh Freeze was a good fit for Ole Miss in terms of having football games where he is able to compete with the Alabamas of the world, right? You have Chad Kelly as your quarterback, and you had a lead on Alabama, a giant lead. Now, you imploded and couldn't hold on to it, but you had a giant lead, and there's not a whole lot of people that can say, oh, we pushed Alabama to the brink. That's three teams. It's Arkansas, it's Ole Miss, it's Clemson, who pushed Alabama to the brink and then over it. That's like three teams. That last year Alabama team. Nobody else touched them. Washington didn't touch them. And Washington played about as good a game as you could have played there. Washington didn't touch them. Right? We all saw what happened with Tennessee. It's Alabama was a tough team to beat, and Ole Miss hung with them. Like, when you look at Hugh Freeze, you're like, okay, this guy's got a bright future. But here's why Ole Miss is something in a bit of a bind here with the way they chose to handle this, because had they fired Hugh Freeze before, the NCAA decided that we're going to step in and march in all over your business and see what it is that's going on at your school. Had you fired him then, before the NCAA descended on you like one enormous vulture, had you fired him then, you could have found a new coach. Who's going to coach Ole Miss now? Who wants to jump into the SEC West that nobody's winning but Alabama? Who wants to jump into a school where you can't compete in the postseason because you self-imposed penalties on yourself? The NCAA has not yet imposed penalties on you. Those are on the horizon. You don't know what that looks like. The school's talented, but you're not as talented as Alabama, Auburn, LSU. Tell me what big name coach is trying to jump into that, right? Because like Chip Kelly would love to coach in the SEC for what people have said around him. But Chip Kelly's not jumping into a mess. Get out of here. Chip Kelly can choose whatever school he wants to coach at. Chip Kelly's not jumping into any mess. Right? Lane Kiffin might do it, which would be a media wet dream, by the way, if Lane Kiffin came over. But Lane Kiffin might do it. But you don't want Lane Kiffin problems. You know you don't want Lane Kiffin problems. He might bring you more problems than what you've already got. Right? And it's not like Lane Kiffin hasn't exactly drawn the interest of the NCAA before. Right? Remember when Lane Kiffin was at Tennessee and then the NCAA came kind of knocking and Lane Kiffin bolted in the middle of the night? You remember that? It's not like Lane Kiffin hasn't been familiar with an NCAA investigation before and shown some kind of willingness to break those rules. It's not like that. You don't want Kiffin problems. Chip Kelly ain't coming. Who's coming? Who's coming to this school? What you need to do now, if you're Ole Miss, is find some young, underrated coach who doesn't mind not really being competitive, who doesn't mind not having any postseason play the first year and all of this stuff, right? Because I don't think they're going to keep the interim head coach, the offensive line coach, as the head coach. I don't think. Right? It's hard to think that. I don't think that they're going to keep him on board as the head coach. Where do they go? All of the potential coaching candidates that they could have had, they can no longer have. Nobody wants to coach a dumpster fire. Nobody. Like, how do you expect that to work? And you could have done this at any time. You could have decided, okay, it's a little hot with Hugh Freeze. Let's let him go. And here's the thing, too. You might have actually, if you cared anything about Hugh Freeze, you might have actually helped Hugh Freeze in the process. Because now Hugh Freeze doesn't have heat on him if you fire him earlier. He's not a guy that necessarily gets blackballed, right? He might not be a head coach right away, but Hugh Freeze could go into TV analysis. Hugh Freeze could be an assistant coach somewhere and let the dirt fly over for a little bit, and then he could find himself another job. Now that Hugh Freeze has been involved in this, Hugh Freeze is not ever going to get the chance to head coach any college football program again, ever. It ain't happening, okay? You didn't do Hugh a favor, you didn't do yourself a favor, and you didn't do any of those athletes, any of those kids that you love so much, you didn't do any of them a favor either. Nothing. You didn't do any of these people a favor because you doubled down on a bad decision. Now you've ruined everything for everybody. Funny how that works. That's the thing about bad decisions. They affect everyone. And Ole Miss made a bad decision, and then they doubled down on it. Didn't back off it, didn't change their mind, sent a dead man walking straight to SEC Media Days and praised him. Like Ross Bjork was not singing this tune literally a week ago when they were surrounded by press. Like Ole Miss is in trouble, but they earned it. And that's the problem. And I feel bad for Shea Patterson and all those other players. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Essential oils are an overlooked benefit. They're a remedy for allergies, sinuses, headaches, and sleep problems. Aches and pains? Let me help you live a better life. Hi, Loretta Lynn here. It's a free consult. Call me today. Look, I'll even give you a free bottle of essential oil. 423-605-4719. Loretta Lynn's Essential Oils. They've been around for thousands of years. They can even be an alternative to pesticides in your garden. Call today. That's 423-605-4719 and take control of your health.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
Essential oils are an overlooked benefit. They're a remedy for allergies, sinuses, headaches, and sleep problems. Aches and pains? Let me help you live a better life. Hi, Loretta Lynn here. It's a free consult. Call me today. Look, I'll even give you a free bottle of essential oil. 423-605-4719. Loretta Lynn's Essential Oils. They've been around for thousands of years. They can even be an alternative to pesticides in your garden. Call today. That's 423-605-4719 and take control of your health.
This is Thomas DeMoss with Keller Williams Realty. I am a realtor in Chattanooga. We list and sell homes, work with buyers, work with home sellers. I have been involved in real estate for over 10 years. My background is as a real estate investor. That is what I bring to the table, is that real estate investor mindset. My job is to help you sell your house for the most money, employing the best marketing strategy and walking you through what can be a rather stressful process. So we are encouraging people who are on the fence or even thought about selling their house to give us a call. There's no obligation. We're just here to kind of have a conversation, let people know what the process is like, what the market is like, what values they can expect to receive. We work with buyers as well. I also have a buyer's agent that works exclusively with my buyers because we want to give our clients as much attention as we can. My cell phone number is 423-364-0028. Our website is northriverpropertygroup.com. That's northriverpropertygroup.com. We'd love for you guys to call us.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field line failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
My name is Trevor Atchley. I'm an attorney here with the law firm McCoon, Williams, Atchley, and Stanley. We have a show on Nooga Radio called Legal Bites, where we discuss legal topics of interest to our listeners: estate planning, business formation, and business transactions. Legal Bites, 11 a.m. on Wednesday.
Essential oils are an overlooked benefit. They're a remedy for allergies, sinuses, headaches, and sleep problems. Aches and pains? Let me help you live a better life. Hi, Loretta Lynn here. It's a free consult. Call me today. Look, I'll even give you a free bottle of essential oil. 423-605-4719. Loretta Lynn's Essential Oils. They've been around for thousands of years. They can even be an alternative to pesticides in your garden. Call today. That's 423-605-4719 and take control of your health. well.
Hi, this is Nadia behind the green door. You've had ice cream and you've had shaved ice, but have you had snow cream? It is amazing. It's light, airy, fruity snowflakes melting on your tongue. You need to come and see us. Highway 58, green door next to Hardee's.
Does your business have enough clients? Are you confused about how to stand out in today's saturated social media market? Do you feel lost trying to navigate the maze of marketing channels which are necessary in today's marketplace? Are you fed up with spending your time and money on employees who don't perform and marketing strategies that don't produce? Then you need Cindy's Choice. Cindy will solve your marketing problems with their innovative shared marketing management concept that will allow your business to have the benefits of a full-time employee that is actually out building relationships in the community on behalf of your brand. Cindy's low monthly rate includes advertising, employee management, public relations, and creative marketing strategies that produce. Cindy can bring this all to you at a rate lower than most advertising campaigns and for much less than the cost of hiring a marketing employee. Cindy's Choice is your trusted source, and Cindy will manage it all for you.
Hi, I'm Cindy. I focus on the prospects so you can focus on the projects. Call me at 423-661-4445. That's 423-661-4445. So you can become Cindy's Choice.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree? Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio. Charge! Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north. Gotta burn my boots, they touched Yankee soil. Lay down your arms and step forward, Yankee!
What's the hassle, Schmassel?
My orders from General Lee is to hold the Macy-Dixie line, and no Yankees are crossing it. The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
WDLZ HD4 Ottawa, W224AZ Chattanooga, WSDG Sunny Daisy Chattanooga.
White House spokesman Sean Spicer exits with a new communications director arriving.
I love the guy and I wish him well.
A terror suspect won't be tried at Gitmo, but rather in a civilian courtroom.
This is precisely what the administration should do.
This is the CBS World News Roundup Late Edition. I'm Dave Barrett. From sparring with White House reporters,
we're going to hold the press accountable as well,
to admitting his own errors.
I hope people understand that we all make mistakes.
Sean Spicer was a Trump administration point man, but no longer. He will leave next month. Succeeding Spicer is Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who at today's White House briefing read a statement from the president.
I'm grateful for Sean's work on behalf of my administration and the American people. I wish him continued success as he moves on to pursue new opportunities. Just look at his great television ratings.
Here's White House correspondent Stephen Portnoy.
From the very first moment he stepped behind the podium,
this was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
Sean Spicer had a combative relationship with the press.
If the president puts Russian salad dressing on his salad tonight, somehow that's a Russian connection. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard.
There were the infamous mistakes.
He brought him into the Holocaust Center. I understand that.
But there were a few lighthearted moments. That's when he referenced his caricature.
You don't have a chance, Spicy.
Don't make me make the podium move.
President Trump said he believed the press corps had beaten Sean Spicer into submission. Spicer mainly stayed behind the scenes in his final weeks. His tenure as press secretary isn't the shortest in history. That distinction belongs to Gerald Terhorst, who resigned in protest after just 30 days when Gerald Ford pardoned Richard Nixon. Stephen Portnoy, CBS News, the White House.
Taking over as communications director, New York financier Anthony Scaramucci.
The president himself is always going to be the president. I was in the Oval Office with him earlier today, and we were talking about letting him be himself, letting him express his full identity. I think he's got some of the best political instincts in the world.
As for Scaramucci on Sean Spicer, he calls him a team player. An al-Qaeda suspect from Algeria was in a federal courtroom today in Philadelphia, not locked up at Guantanamo. And that's a key. Ali Sharaf Damash, known as Black Flag, is suspected of being part of a plot to kill a cartoonist from Sweden. CBS's senior legal analyst, Andrew Cohen.
The rich irony, of course, is that this administration blasted the Obama team for wanting to try terror suspects in federal civilian court, even though there is a long tradition of safe, secure trials in New York and Virginia. But if you get past the irony and whatever political fallout comes from the GOP for this, this is a wise move. It means one way or another, there will be swifter justice for this defendant.
On Wall Street, the Dow dropped 31 points. The NASDAQ lost 2. Now this.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. Every day people ask me, Jay, did I miss out? Have the rates gone up? The answer is no. Rates are still low, and it's a perfect time to refinance your home, especially if your mortgage rate is higher than 4.25%. If you'd like to lower your interest rate and save thousands of dollars in interest without starting over on a new 30-year loan, a Quicken Loans Yorgage is what you're looking for. With our exclusive Yorgage, you can choose a term that works best for you, anywhere from 8 to 30 years. The rate today on an 8-year Yorgage is 3.25%. APR 3.75%. For 7 years in a row now, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation for customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. And for the 3rd year in a row, they've also ranked us highest in the nation for mortgage servicing. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to quickenloans.com. That's 800-QUICKEN.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLSConsumerAccess.org, number 3030.
It was a minute-long video that showed a man in his last moments of life.
Get out the water, you gonna die. This man ain't getting back up.
Yeah, he did, but he gone.
Jamel Dunn had screamed for someone to help him to get out of a retention pond in Cocoa, Florida. 5 teenagers did nothing. Dunn, who was disabled, drowned. Now, as WKMG-TV's James Sparvero explains, those teenagers are going to face legal action.
The charges now sought are misdemeanors from a state law requiring anyone who witnesses a death to report it to the medical examiner. Investigators say settling for nothing wasn't good enough for them or Dunn's family, so they dug into this statute to pursue a case.
Trump administration today said there'll be a ban on Americans' travel to North Korea. South Carolina Congressman Joe Wilson tells CBS News.
We should do all that we can to protect American citizens.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240. Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Bradley County Sheriff Eric Watson was booked into his own jail on Friday, but then posted $30,000 bail and got back on the job. A bill that would have nonprofits in Hamilton County follow county monetary policy was rescinded in a 7-2 vote. Tim Boyd and Randy Fairbanks voting no, the rest of the county commission voting yes to rescind the bill. County Commissioner Greg Martin said this.
Yeah, I think it's adding more government, and I don't think we should add more government on nonprofits.
2 shootings in Chattanooga in just 24 hours. One man accused of killing his girlfriend at Cypress Street, shooting her after a verbal argument. Another case out of Hickson Pike, where a victim was gunned down at a gas station just off of Highway 153. Join me, Russell Stroud, weekday mornings between 6 and 9 for CBS Radio News, America's First News, and Chattanooga's First News, plus in-depth traffic and weather. And Nooga Radio News now, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Fair skies will continue through your nighttime, staying warm and muggy overnight, lows only to the mid-70s. For Saturday, another hot, humid day, back into the lower 90s. An isolated afternoon shower or storm may pop up, with scattered showers and storms more likely. Sunday, highs near 90. This forecast is brought to you by Hamilton Medical Center, featuring their neurosurgery and spine center, open in Calhoun. Stop putting up with back pain. For an appointment, 706-529-9041. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Now, me being a radio guy, I'm really not good with vehicles. Never changed my own oil, can barely change a tire, and sometimes when I hear a clanking, I just turn the radio up louder. Not a real good idea. So I need to be able to trust someone when they look at my vehicle. Well, I found the guys, locally owned and operated here in Chattanooga. It's Precision Tune Auto Care. They're your neighbors. There's 3 locations in Chattanooga. And since they're Nooga Radio's official oil change center, they're going to extend the great deal they give to us to you. Just $20 for a standard oil change. Can you imagine that? $20 for a standard oil change. You're in and out in no time. $20 for a standard oil change at Precision Tune Auto Care. And they treat all of their customers like family. With show and tell, they'll show you what's wrong, point out the problems, and tell you exactly what it will take to get fixed. They really do have pride in what they do at Precision Tune Auto Care. Precision Tune Auto Care with 3 locations: 2125 Gun Barrel Road, Chattanooga, 4221 Hickson Pike, and Highway 58 next to Dunkin' Donuts. Call 602-5955. That's 602-5955. Precision Tune Auto Care.
Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM knows your opinion is important. So call 800-8949. Agree or disagree. Call 423-800-8949. 800-8949. Nooga Radio, AM 1240, 92.7 FM, and 95.3 HD4. News, talk, sports. Nooga Radio.
You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Nooga Radio is the station. NoogaRadio.com is our phone number. Is our website, rather. Our phone number is 423-800-8949, 423-800-8949. Knuckleheads. And speaking of knuckleheads, boy, did Ole Miss really ruin this. In fact, Ole Miss has been stepping in it consistently since last year. This might be my first big boy story. This might be my first story that I've covered over the radio from the moment that we learned about it to we're not at the end of this yet, but we are getting close to the end. Like, this has to reach some kind of conclusion now that Hugh Freeze no longer has a job at Ole Miss, right? But it started last year at the NFL draft. And I was getting ready for the NFL draft on this show. The draft actually started during my show. So I did not know at the time all the ramifications of what would end up following when Laramie Tunsil, a video of him would then be leaked to Twitter of him smoking a bong made from a gas mask. I'm assuming for maximum highness. That's the assumption anyway. Anywho, that leaked out after he got drafted. Though Laramie Tunsil hasn't been in any trouble since, so that's a fair thing to note. As well as Laramie Tunsil texting a coach asking for money to help pay his mother's light bill, which, while that's tragic that she needed help paying for her light bill, that coach could not do that according to the laws and rules of the NCAA. And that coach ended up getting fired, and Ole Miss then acted like, well, nope, we solved the problem. And that is the issue with this entire story, is that every time Ole Miss could have done everything necessary to solve the problem, actually solve the problem, not pretend to solve the problem. Anytime they could have done everything necessary to actually solve the problem, they did not do that. They did the opposite of that, in fact. They did as little as humanly possible and then threw their hands up in the air and said, hey, we've solved it. Leave us alone. And then more stuff would come out, and then they would do all the little bit that was necessary. So, yeah, coach is caught in a text giving a player money. He's fired. We're good. We're good. Some new allegations turn up as the NCAA begins to investigate. They blame it on former Ole Miss head coach Houston Nutt. No, it's all his fault. He did that. We're good. We're good. The NCAA starts to bring a little bit more heat. They start to get a little bit closer in some of these infractions, some of these allegations, and Ole Miss bans itself from the postseason. right? They punish themselves and then throw their hands up again. We're good. We're good. Except you're not good. You're not good. You're not even close to good. Like, that doesn't stop the NCAA from investigating. You know that, right? That the NCAA will still investigate you if you punish yourself. What you're saying is, we are guilty of stuff, just don't punish us so bad because we knew about it. You didn't solve anything. Ole Miss solved absolutely nothing with any of their solutions. And my favorite scene in Breaking Bad, which is a great TV show, but my favorite scene is when Mike is talking to Jesse in the show. Okay, and you don't have to know any of these people are, but if you haven't watched Breaking Bad and you do like to watch TV, what on earth are you waiting for? Like, go watch Breaking Bad, go watch it yesterday. The point is, Mike tells Jesse at one point in the show, which is a saying, by the way, that I have taken to heart in my actual life. Never take a half measure when a full measure will do. Never take a half measure when a full measure will do. Best quote in the entire show. And it's true. Ole Miss didn't even take half measures. They were like quarter measures. They were 1/20th measures. Like, they didn't even take a half measure. But the point is, don't ever do something halfway when you could do it all the way. And no disrespect to Hugh Freeze, but doing it all the way would have involved firing Hugh Freeze for what he did. Yes. Because he was involved in something. And you didn't know what, but he was involved. The NCAA did not pull these allegations out of thin air. Say what you want about the NCAA, because they are horrifyingly ineffective in many, many ways, right? Whether you want to talk about expanding to a college football playoff, they did do it eventually, but people had been calling for it for years. And the first year they did it, it was an absolute smashing success, right? The next year they tampered with it and it wasn't, but the first year was a success. Like, people really did want a playoff. Oh, we want players to get paid. We want some way for players to be compensated for their work. And never has an organization before seen the morality of the point that everyone around them is making and yet continue to drag their feet, quite like the NC2A. So yeah, I'm not all gung-ho about Mark Emmert and the NCAA, but I will say this: when the NCAA is about investigating people breaking their rules, they really investigate people breaking their rules. And the only way to get the NCAA off their trail, off your trail, is to just ditch the dead weight, right? Ditch it. Hugh Freeze was the dead weight, right? And only Hugh Freeze, by the way, like, not that Hugh Freeze is absolved of any of this blame, okay? He's not. Ole Miss should have gotten rid of Hugh Freeze, but Hugh Freeze, if he really, really knew, and only he really knows, all the stuff he was tangled up in, he should have left. Now, Hugh Freeze is not good enough of a coach to do what Pete Carroll did and to do what Chip Kelly did, because you realize, like, at least a deciding factor in the leaving of college football to the NFL for both Chip Kelly and Pete Carroll was the fact that the NCAA was sniffing around for stuff, right? Pete Carroll was at USC, and then all the stuff with Reggie Bush came out, and whether or not Reggie Bush was getting paid through a car dealership, and all of this stuff. They took away Reggie Bush's Heisman, everything. And the NCAA turned their sights onto Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll was like, what are you talking about? I'm the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. He left. He got out. Chip Kelly. Oregon. Oregon is one of those schools that suspiciously got very good very, very fast. Now, it's not that they did a bunch of shady stuff, right? Because you have to give Chip Kelly a lot of credit for really popularizing the spread offense and just maiming people with the spread offense, just destroying them. And then they did all the cool stuff with the uniforms that recruits really love, that every school since has been copying. Chip Kelly did a lot to help Oregon, but some shadiness was involved somewhere. We'll never know where, because as the NCAA turned their attention to Oregon, Chip Kelly was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know what that means. And you can't investigate Chip Kelly if he's not coaching college football. And Chip Kelly's been away from college football long enough. If he shows up again, no one's going to investigate him for anything. All he has to do is not go back to Oregon. And Oregon's got a coach now, so they're good, right? Like, all the coaches before that were about to be investigated jump ship. They left. Do you understand? They bolted. That's how it was. Now, we'll never know what it was going to happen or what it was going to be with Penn State and Joe Pa, because Joe Pa passed away. But it would have been a different situation had Joe Pa chosen to stay, because he's flipping Joe Paterno. That's why. Because he's Joe Paterno and he can do what he wants. Right? He'd been there forever. He built what we know to be Penn State football in the modern era, and even not in the modern era. Like, that's how long Joe Pa was there. Right? Joe Paterno is a legend. So Joe Paterno wasn't going to run anywhere, right? But Hugh Freeze is not a legend. And I guess that he's in that unfortunate spot that Hugh Freeze wasn't anything particularly special. Like, where was Hugh Freeze going to run to? I suppose is a great question. But I don't know. Anything had to beat the pants off of standing right there and letting the train that is the NCAA run right through you. Anything had to be better than that. Because you had to know all of your dirt was going to turn up. You had to know it. I'm really mad that the story broke just as I got off the air. Like, nothing's worse than that. If it breaks while you're on the air, that's really cool. That's pretty fun. Granted, I don't get a chance to really get a strong opinion on it. But, man, when it breaks right when you get off the air, that's not fun. Now you have to sit there and wait a full 24 hours, essentially, before you get to talk about anything. Hugh Freeze is every bit as culpable about what happened to him as Ole Miss is. And Ole Miss is quite culpable, because they had an opportunity to drop Hugh Freeze as dead weight. Right? And they were hoping that they were going to make the stupid smart decision and hang on to him and see if they could survive the investigation. That's what they were hoping for. But what part of the track record of everybody else that's ever been investigated led you to believe that you were going to survive? Right? Like, and keep basketball out of this, because basketball coaches seem to have an immunity with the NCAA that no one's ever going to have. Right? Rick Pitino has some kind of immunity. Rick Pitino is still coaching at Louisville. Louisville could win a national title next year. Like, it's possible. They are not banned from postseason play. Rick Pitino is suspended for some games, for some ACC games. Louisville could potentially make the tournament and win it next year. How is that possible, right? The NCAA is investigating Syracuse and Jim Boeheim, and he wins a national title, right? The unlikely, were they the 11th seed that year? The 10th or 11th seed that year that he won the title? Granted, when Syracuse is a 10th or 11th seed, it's not like a small school winning it. But they were being investigated. Like, that would never happen in college football. Like, it would never happen in college football. You were being investigated, and you still got to coach through into the postseason with a chance to win a title. Like, that would never happen. Except North Carolina, who is in being investigated, has won a title very recently since their investigation, in which they were sanctioned. Syracuse has won it. Like, basketball is just a different animal. You'd never see that in college football. Where has that been successful in football? Because I don't think it has been. Right? The guys that survived, Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, left. They saw the writing on the wall and they got the hell out of Dodge. They left. Right? Now, Hugh Freeze doesn't have the swing to leave. And it's that point in the offseason where, you know, people who were looking for a coach, not really looking for a coach anymore. It's a little late to be looking for a coach. But man, you got to do something. You knew that they were trained in on you from the beginning. You've had a year to get out, to see that this ends no way but poorly for everyone. Because they clapped Penn State hard. Right? They clapped Penn State hard. When the NCAA catches a football program, they clap you, and they clap you hard. They clapped Baylor, and Baylor dropped Art Briles, right? Like, Baylor tried to hang on to Art Briles, and then when the stuff got bad, like really bad, Baylor was not messing around. They just dropped Art Briles like a bad habit. And the NCAA still clapped them. I don't know what Ole Miss thinks is going to happen to them, but if any of the stuff that the NCAA is investigating involving Hugh Freeze turns out to be true, and I can't imagine that it's not, they are going to clap Ole Miss into the Stone Age. We're about to have an SEC West school that just can't compete for anything for a while. We're going to forget that they exist. Right? Like, and we can all feel it. They're going to clap Ole Miss so hard, I feel bad for Archie Manning, who hasn't played there in decades. I feel bad for Eli, just for having gone there. Ole Miss is about to catch that clap. I don't know what they thought was going to happen and how they thought this was going to play out. You don't beat the NCAA if you're a football program. They stomp you. It's very easy for them to stomp you. We've seen it time and time again, and the only way you get off is if your coach runs away, right? If your coach runs away. But Baylor is not in as much trouble as Ole Miss is right now, because Baylor immediately saw what was happening, just went ahead and fired Art Briles. And we're going to bring in Jim Grobe for a year. Do we have any intentions of keeping this man as our football coach? No. But he is a guy that's known as a moral coach. Like, we're just trying our best to get the stink of these allegations off of us. And then they get to bring in Matt Rule, and they're trying their best to be on their best behavior, keep a very low profile. And then by the time they're able to compete for stuff again, they've brought in a promising head coach, and they've got a future. Ole Miss doesn't have a future because they held on to Hugh Freeze so long that the toxicity, they can't wash it off fast enough. When the NCAA comes to catch them, and the NCAA is going to catch them because they're caught in a contradiction where they have to pretend that Hugh Freeze is both a good and bad guy at the same time. Because if he wasn't a bad guy, why'd you fire him? Or why'd you force him to resign? And if he is a bad guy, then that proves the NCAA's point. He's probably breaking all of our rules too. Probably. There's no reason to believe he wasn't breaking all our rules. There's nobody that wants to walk into that situation, right? Like, once they know what your limitations are, then it's like, okay, I might be able to work this out, right? Like, once the sanctions dropped down on Baylor, Matt Rule was able to look at that job and go, okay, the Baylor job is long-term a good job. If we can get past the stink of everything that this program was recently, I think I can turn this back into a good job. And it sure beats the pants off a Temple. But Ole Miss doesn't have those options. And it's crazy because what Ole Miss did is not nearly as bad as what happened at Baylor with all of the domestic abuse, domestic violence, rape allegations that were happening on that campus that got buried. I mean, what happened at Ole Miss? Probably just paying players and illegal recruiting that It's not nearly as bad as what happened at Baylor, and yet Ole Miss is in a worse position because they're in a tougher conference, and they held on to their coach. They doubled down on the coach and tried to cover stuff up. And what is always the killer in every scandal? The cover-up. The cover-up is always worse than the crime. When we're talking about the Watergate scandal with Richard Nixon, Watergate was bad. The cover-up of Watergate was worse. Right? Think of any scandal you can think of, which is bad. The thing that happened or the fact that people try to bury it. The fact that people try to bury it. Because when you start to discover that people had to bury crimes, then someone has to be aware of the crime happening. They have to make the decision that this is not worth reporting. And then you have to get into all their motives of like, why did you think this was not reporting? And usually it's something sleazy like, oh, money. We were afraid we were going to lose money. We wanted to gain more money. Or publicity. We were afraid of what it would make us look like. Cover-ups are always worse. And Ole Miss, by doubling down on Hugh Freeze, attempted to cover up the fact that, we had stuff going on. But by keeping Hugh Freeze, what you're saying is, but it's not his fault. It's not us right now. Maybe that's what we used to be. We'll take a little bit of the hit for what we used to be, but don't punish us because that's not what we are right now. And that cover-up's just not going to fly, especially if the guy gets caught, phone calling escorts, right? The guy gets caught phone calling prostitutes. Your entire "we're upstanding people caught in a bad situation" defense falls entirely apart. Paul Feinbaum has some strong words for Butch Jones. Butch Jones, he fires back. Butch with Keon Rose at AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM's news now.
Bradley County Sheriff Eric Watson was booked into his own jail on Friday, but then posted $30,000 bail and got back on the job. A bill that would have nonprofits in Hamilton County follow county monetary policy was rescinded in a 7-2 vote. Tim Boyd and Randy Fairbanks voting no, the rest of the county commission voting yes to rescind the bill. County Commissioner Greg Martin said this.
Yeah, I think it's adding more government, and I don't think we should add more government on nonprofits.
2 shootings in Chattanooga in just 24 hours. One man accused of killing his girlfriend at Cypress Street, shooting her after a verbal argument. Another case out of Hickson Pike, where a victim was gunned down at a gas station just off of Highway 153. Join me, Russell Stroud, weekday mornings between 6 and 9 for CBS Radio News, America's First News, and Chattanooga's First News, plus in-depth traffic and weather. And Nooga Radio News now, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Fair skies will continue through your nighttime, staying warm and muggy overnight, lows only to the mid-70s. For Saturday, another hot, humid day, back into the lower 90s. An isolated afternoon shower or storm may pop up with scattered showers and storms more likely. Sunday, highs near 90. This forecast is brought to you by Hamilton Medical Center, featuring their neurosurgery and spine center, open in Calhoun. Stop putting up with back pain. For an appointment, 706-529-9041. And I'm Sourcine 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Hi, this is Eric Pelton. Taxes, accounting, business advice. I've got a neat brochure, 12 ways to improve your business profits. Come on by for a free consultation and we'll give you a copy. E.J. Pelton Company, 332-3339.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Hi, I'm David Crockett, and I'm here with David Tulis, and we're having a little discussion over who's the #1 Nooga centrist. If you want to keep up with free market ideas, then read Nooganomics.com. David Tulis, the blogger with the biggest pen.
The Tennessee Valley's news, talk, and sports leader. Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
You're listening to Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. The station is Nooga Radio. The website is noogaradio.com. And Butch Jones and Paul Feinbaum are going back at it. Like we know, it's talking season right now. We're getting close to the college football season. Oh, it's so close. Oh, it's so close. It's like going to the desert. You know what I mean? And you can see the end, but you're not quite there. I'm going to go watch the Chattanooga Eagles tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central High School. They're playing for first place in their division, and they're trying to get that first-round bye in the postseason, which is very helpful because the GDFL is a developmental football league. So it's for players that are get to the next level and out of college trying to get to the next level, whether that's the NFL, arena football, CFL, or to college. And so with this, a lot of these guys, they have lives in the middle of the week. You know, they work 40-hour jobs just like the rest of us. And a bye week, it'll help you out. It's football with all those other pressures, right? So I think this is very, very important for them. And, of course, it's a little football oasis. It's a little football oasis, but we also revel in talking season. At least I revel in talking season. I enjoy the war of words that can oftentimes happen, especially the war of words that can oftentimes happen between the media and coaches. And Paul Feinbaum is a guy. He's got a very big platform. He covers the SEC. What could possibly go wrong? Here's Paul Feinbaum.
Butch Jones is very likely to survive this season. Short of a collapse, short of a disaster. But how does this season play out? I mean, he has done a really good job of lowering expectations, which I think is what he wants to do. What frustrated me on Monday was this. We inherited a very difficult situation. We inherited a program that was 2-14 against Power 5. I mean, that's ridiculous. In your fifth year, you shouldn't be talking about your first year. You shouldn't be young. You shouldn't be going through a transition. You should be, I mean, Alabama's not the example everyone wants to hear, but Nick Saban, after 5 years, had won a national championship and was about to win another one.
I mean, look, say what you want about Paul Feinbaum and how he's a Tennessee hater and how he's a little bit of a Tennessee troll. And is he wrong there? Is he really wrong? Because I don't disagree with anything that he just said. That audio, by the way, came courtesy of Saturday Down South. They sat down with Paul Feinbaum and interviewed him. And he's the Monday that he's referring to is Monday this week earlier, which I didn't get to talk too much about because I didn't really watch Butch Jones. He was over at the Four Letter Network. He went through the car wash. He was on all the shows, you know, Mike and Mike and the Six Show with Jamel and Michael. And he went through the entire thing. And I figured it was mostly going to be your standard Butch Jones fare of he says lots of stuff, but you don't really learn anything. Like you just hear his lips move and you're just like, but what does that mean, Butch? You know, like you don't learn anything new from what the guy is saying. And Paul Feinbaum is expressing, I think, a little bit of frustration with that, which is that the guy is constantly lowering expectations. Like, no, I don't think Butch Jones gets fired this season either. But Butch Jones continues to play this card of, well, we're just happy to be here, and you know, shucks. When I got here, things were so bad. Don't you remember how bad things were? because things used to be really bad. Yeah, but they brought you in to make things better. And you made things a little better, but you didn't really make it better. Right? Like that annoys people. That annoys people. That Butch Jones has been the head football coach of this team for 5 years. He's been the coach of the team for 5 years. After 5 years, it's not the time to be rebuilding, right? That is the thing that I spent a decent amount of time mocking the New York Knicks and their Phil Jackson situation, because that's what Phil Jackson was trying to peddle to people. Phil Jackson came in to be the president of basketball operations, took over a team, and then the team didn't do anything. And he was talking about in year 4 or 5, let's rebuild. That's what you came here for. When does the rebuilding get done? When does it get done? Because doesn't that bother you when you're driving on I-75 and I-24 or on whatever major road you use here in Chattanooga and it's under construction and it feels like it's under construction always? Like 75, or not 75, 24. Once you get past the 75, the 24 split right there, and you're on 24 headed downtown, like that part of Chattanooga has been under construction eternally. Like I'm convinced they're never going to get done. That there's always going to be cranes and bulldozers and the steamrollers, and they're all going to be there just constantly for the rest of our lives. We're just going to have the I-24 being worked on until 2027, right? We're just going to have that constantly. It's going to be another 10 years and they're still going to be somehow fixing it. Don't you hate that when they're supposed to be rebuilding stuff and then the stuff doesn't get built? Like, how would you like that if they came out and said, well, when we first got here, there were a lot of potholes in the road. And we were filling in the potholes, but there was a lot of potholes when we got here. Correct. And your job was to fill the potholes, not continue construction for eons. Which is what feels like happens. Same thing with Tennessee. It feels like they are always under construction. It's been 5 years. At some point, it's like, yeah, the team's young. But the team hasn't been young for a couple of years now, right? Like the first 3 years you were there, we let you run out that, well, the team's young. You can't talk about how the team's young anymore. You are returning more talent than anybody else in the SEC East outside of Kentucky. What do you mean the team's young? The team's not young. The quarterback's young, but the team's not young. The running back is a senior. What are you talking about? Seriously, what on earth is he getting at with that? Other than creating a built-in excuse for when he doesn't meet expectations again. Because I'm telling you, Tennessee fans dream bigger than Butch dreams. And I don't know that that's a good combination. I don't necessarily want the fan base dreaming bigger than the coach. That ought to be the other way around. We should at least have even expectations of this football team. But when if the coach dreams bigger than the fan base and falls short of his own wild dreams, that's one thing. Because then the fans can go, well, yeah, we didn't really expect you to get that far anyway, though. But when the fans dream bigger than the coach, that's a problem. And Butch Jones makes these excuses in advance. He started doing it last year. Before everything started and Tennessee ended up being polled really high in the preseason poll, he was doing it again. He was trying to lower the expectations, which on some level is wise. I don't think that you want to build up a ton of expectations on young guys and ask them to do more than what they can carry. But that team last year was an East winning team as far as the talent on the roster was concerned, and they did not live up to it. And Butch ran out there with the champions of life conversation once again because he's trying to avoid that conversation where we're all disappointed in how far this team should have gone. And Butch Jones never wants to be the guy in front of the microphone taking the L. He doesn't. Remember last year after the Vandy game where Butch Jones didn't really go down and talk to the media? He talked to the media for like 5 minutes and left the players holding the bag. Do you remember that? Butch Jones never wants to be the guy in front of the microphone or in front of the camera taking that L. But he's the coach, and that's his job. If he dreams big, there's nothing wrong with that. Now, don't spout it all out to the media, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to be guaranteeing victories. Don't do that. But nobody wants to hear that whole Punxsutawney Phil, well, shucks. I don't know if we've got a team good enough this year. Man, we're pretty young. People are tired of hearing all that noise. I can tell you that right now. Nobody wants to hear any of that. We're just happy to be here. I recruit guys with 5-star hearts. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants any of that as an explanation. What kind of explanation is that? Those are the most frustrating people to talk to. When you ask them something and their reason is because what? But because that's the way it's always been. Okay, but that's not a reason. Why has it always been that way? Right? Because this is where I butt heads, I think, with just lots of people in general. I want reasons for the stuff that you do. I get to confrontations with my girlfriend on this all the time because she tells me I'm a contrarian because I don't do stuff just because you're supposed to. I'm going to need a better reason to do something than simply because you're supposed to. And if I come up with a better way of doing something and I have reasons for it, and I always have reasons for it, then I'm going to do it my way. If you tell me, no, we don't do it that way because this, that, and the other, you give me the logic behind what it is that you're talking about, I will follow you based on the logic of what you're talking about. I don't do stuff just because. And that seems like to be Butch Jones' every explanation to everything. Why didn't you succeed? We didn't succeed because. Because what? Well, we're a young football team. No, you're not. No, you're not. Go back and look at your own roster. You're not young. When Josh Dobbs came in for Justin Worley, you were young then. You're not young now. So why can't you do this? We're building something here. You've been building it for 5 years. And I understand you've got to scale things accurately, right? Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. I am laying out the frustrations here with Butch Jones, but you've got to scale things correctly, right? Paul Feinbaum referenced that Nick Saban showed up in 5 years. He won a title and he was getting ready to win another. Not everybody's Saban and not everybody's Alabama. So you obviously have to scale that differently. But Butch Jones hasn't won the division in 5 years. What, you think Tennessee fans are crazy? Tennessee fans aren't crazy. They're smart. They know that to build a title team from where they were takes a little bit more time. But I don't think anybody was unreasonable to expect the division. And then Butch Jones fired back at Paul Feinbaum. And he fired back. He fired back with my favorite explanation that coaches fire back with. Quote, Paul hasn't played one snap of football for the University of Tennessee. He said our expectations are to win championships. That's the next evolution of our football program. He gets paid to make those comments, and I respect that. So not only leave it to Butch Jones to fire back at Paul Feinbaum and then kind of like walk back his firing back. He hasn't played one snap of football for Tennessee. Oh, he hasn't played the game. Oh, boy. My favorite excuse, because that's what players always say about people in the media, that we don't understand anything because we've never played the game. But like, we watch tons of it, right? We watch it, we analyze it, we break it down. We understand the game to an extent. Now, I don't think we'll ever understand the game quite like coaches and players understand the game. But don't treat us like we don't understand the game at all, right? Like, how much football has Paul Feinbaum watched in his whole life? How much SEC football has Paul Feinbaum watched in his whole life? Paul Feinbaum knows football, okay? He might not be your cup of tea. He might rub you the wrong way. He might come off as a bit of a troll, which he can be all of those things. That does not mean that he's not qualified to talk about this, and it doesn't make him wrong, especially about this, because all of Paul Feinbaum's Butch Jones questions are the same questions we all have about Butch Jones. Dude, when are you going to start winning? When are we going to enter a season when you expect to win? Where Butch Jones and Tennessee football, they roll up into SEC media days and say, if we don't win the East, that's a disappointment. We expect to win the East. We expect to be in Atlanta. We expect to be playing for an SEC title. When do we get there, right? Because he's saying, quote, that's the next evolution of our football program. Well, it's not the next evolution of the football program, dude. It's this evolution of the football program. You got past the rebuilding part, dude. You rebuilt. You're consistently making bowl games. You're winning 8-9 games a year. No one wants to hear any more of this. Well, you know, we're trying to build to something here. You had the East locked up last year. Okay? You were driving down the road. You were driving down an alley. Okay? Florida was behind you, but you were in an alley, so there was no way they could pass you. None. All you had to do was win 2 winnable football games. South Carolina, Vanderbilt. Lost them both. And somehow you just took the exit off the highway. It's a 1-lane highway. I don't know. It's not a great analogy. My point is, you had a lead that you shouldn't have lost. You were in front. Right? It's like NASCAR. You've got the lead. Someone's behind you. They can't pass you. They can't pass you. You went and took a pit stop. I don't want to hear about the rebuilding. I don't want to hear about we're evolving into a championship team. Be a championship team. You have a championship level roster. You do. Okay? Because I'm going to tell you what. No matter what happens to Tennessee this year, no matter what happens to Butch Jones this year, if Kentucky finishes with a better record than Tennessee, fire Butch. Because Kentucky is right along. Kentucky ought to be behind you in resources in their rebuild. Okay, that's a basketball school, my man. If Kentucky has a better season than Tennessee, fire Butch. And I don't care if Butch wins 10 games. If Kentucky wins 11, fire him. Because I don't want that attitude. Well, we're just rebuilding to something. I'm looking at other schools with a little bit more confidence, right? Kentucky, in their weight room, Kentucky thinks they're going to make the college football playoff. Now, I disagree vehemently. I don't think they have a chance, to be honest with you. But that's an example where the coach and the team are dreaming bigger than the fan base is. Like, if Kentucky doesn't make the playoff, you think Kentucky fans are really going to be disappointed? No, they're realists. They know where they ought to be landing in the college football pecking order, in the SEC pecking order. They understand where they fall on the food chain. You think if Kentucky fans fail to get that far, they're gonna be disappointed? No. But they are enjoying a season where they have a chance, where their coaching staff, where their players believe they have a chance. The team has to dream bigger than the fan base. And at Tennessee, and why I will always be disappointed with Butch until Butch changes his attitude or Butch starts winning more games. Will always be disappointed with Butch, is because it feels like the fan base dreams bigger than he does. That the talent on the roster, I think we feel like we have a better idea as to how far that talent should be going. And he ain't taking it there. And he's trying to lie to us. Right? Every year, this is Butch Jones at SEC Media Days.
Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
That's Butch Jones every year at SEC Media Days. Every time we tell him, Butch, how are you supposed to win? He just waves us on. It's all fine. It's all fine here. Nothing's wrong here. Come on, man. He doesn't understand why we're frustrated. Like he's not capable of understanding. Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240 and 92.7 FM. Remember, folks, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch, and I'll see you in 72 hours. Special thanks to Coach Zach and to Coach Clark for joining me. Support the Chattanooga Eagles tomorrow, Central High School at 7.
In-depth traffic, news, and information. Mornings on Nooga Radio, AM 1240 and 92.7 FM.
Overlook Benefit. They're a remedy for allergies, sinuses, headaches, and sleep problems. Aches and pains? Let